ignored by her husband. She wore a simple dress, and the billionaire erupted in pure jealousy. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. On the night everything quietly shifted, Claire Morgan stood at the top of the marble staircase, fingertips brushing the fabric of the simple navy dress she had pulled from the back of her closet. It wasn't sequined, it wasn't designer, and it wasn't meant to turn heads. She chose it because she didn't have the energy to fight with her husband, Daniel, over another one of his comments about cost, style, or status. The charity gala below shimmered with chandeliers and glittering gowns, the kind of place where money spoke first and sincerity almost never arrived. Claire inhaled slowly, steadying herself before stepping down the stairs. She searched for Daniel, hoping he would at least offer a smile, a nod, anything. Instead, she found him deep in conversation with a group of investors, barely glancing her way. She lifted a hand in a small wave. Daniel didn't notice. He hadn't noticed much lately. Not the way she worked 12-hour shifts at the clinic. Not the way she tiptoed around their expensive house like a guest. Not the way she still tried. Tonight was supposed to be a chance to reconnect. But as he turned his back to her, she felt that familiar sting. She slipped into the ballroom, blending among strangers dressed in gowns that sparkled like stars. And yet, somehow, she felt even more invisible. She found a quiet corner near a display of auction items. A simple painting caught her eye. Mountains at dawn, colors soft and hopeful. The brushstrokes reminded her of who she used to be before her life became measured by Daniel's schedule. She whispered, almost to herself, "I shouldn't have come. That's a shame." A voice answered behind her, warm and masculine. "Because I'm glad you did." Claire turned sharply. Standing a few feet away was Ethan Calder, the reclusive billionaire behind Calder Industries. Tall, impossibly composed, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than her monthly salary. He wasn't smiling, but somehow his eyes softened when they met hers. "Your dress," he said quietly, "is the only one in this room that doesn't scream for attention. That's why it caught mine." Claire blinked, unsure if he was teasing her or complimenting her. "It's just something simple," she murmured. "Nothing special." "That's where you're wrong." Ethan stepped closer, but not enough to break her space. It takes a certain kind of confidence to wear something simple in a room full of people trying too hard. Claire felt her cheeks warm. It had been a long time since anyone noticed her, really noticed her. She tried to steady her voice. "My husband is here somewhere." "Yes," Ethan said softly, gaze drifting across the room, landing on Daniel. "I see him." Claire followed his eyes just in time to watch Daniel glance their way. The moment his gaze landed on Ethan standing with her, close enough to talk intimately, close enough to suggest something more, the air around him shifted. His jaw tightened. His posture stiffened. His expression darkened with a sharp flicker she hadn't seen in years. Jealousy, pure and sudden. For the first time that night, Daniel finally saw her. And Ethan saw everything. Claire's heartbeat thudded in her ears as Ethan leaned in just enough for only her to hear. "Interesting," he murmured. "Looks like someone finally realized what he's been ignoring." She swallowed, unable to respond, because deep down she knew one truth. This night was about to change everything. And neither man had any idea how far it would go. Daniel's stare burned across the ballroom long after Ethan stepped back, giving Claire just enough space to breathe again. Her pulse thudded beneath her collarbone, loud enough that she wondered if Ethan could hear it. She did not know why his presence felt steadying, why his voice seemed to reach the places inside her that had gone quiet over the years. But she forced herself to look away from him and focus on what she came here for. Her marriage. Her husband. Even if lately, she felt more like a shadow in their home than a partner. She drew a quiet breath. "I should probably go talk to him," she murmured. Ethan studied her for a moment as if debating whether he should let her leave. Then he nodded, but there was something firm, almost protective in his tone. "Claire, you do not owe anyone an apology for being noticed." The words hit deeper than she expected. She walked toward Daniel, weaving through clusters of wealthy donors and glittering gowns until she reached him. His forced smile did not hide the tension in his jaw. "Enjoying yourself?" she asked gently. Daniel did not answer the question. He simply looked her up and down, a quick glance that made her shoulders tighten. "So," he said, voice low. Calder seems interested. She blinked. "He just said hello? That is all." Daniel scoffed. Men like him do not say hello to women wearing dresses like that unless they want something. The words struck her harder than they should have. She straightened slightly. "What is wrong with my dress?" "Nothing," he said, but the tightness in his voice told another story. "It is just simple." Simple. The same word she had told herself earlier. But hearing it from him made it feel smaller, like she should have been ashamed of it. Before she could respond, their table companions approached, and Daniel excused himself, slipping effortlessly into polished conversation. Again, she was left standing alone. She stepped back, exhaling slowly, when she felt someone's eyes on her. She turned. Ethan was watching from across the room, his expression unreadable. Not pity, not curiosity, something sharper, something that saw more than she intended to show. For reasons she could not explain, she walked toward the terrace doors, slipping outside into the cool night air to steady herself. She wrapped her arms around her torso, inhaling the scent of gardenias drifting from the courtyard below. A few seconds later, the door clicked open behind her. She did not need to turn to know who it was. "I did not follow you," Ethan said. "I just needed air." She let out a breath that almost turned into a laugh. "Seems to be a popular escape tonight." He stepped beside her, leaving a respectful amount of space. "Are you all right?" She hesitated. She had become so used to swallowing what hurt that she almost did it again. But here, under the soft glow of terrace lights, with someone who was not judging her or dismissing her, the truth slipped out. "I do not know anymore," she whispered. "I try. I really try. But it feels like no matter what I do, I disappear a little more every year." Ethan's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "Then someone in your life has forgotten your value." She swallowed hard. "Maybe I let that happen." "Or," he said gently, "maybe you have been giving yourself to someone who never earned it." She felt tears sting, not from the harshness of the words, but from how painfully accurate they felt. She turned her face away, blinking them back. Ethan quietly continued. "A woman who walks into a room and holds it without even trying deserves someone who sees it." She looked up at him, startled. "I did not hold the room." "You did," he said simply. "You just do not realize it." Before she could answer, the terrace door burst open. Daniel strode out, irritation barely contained. "There you are," he snapped. Then his gaze shifted to Ethan, and anger flashed bright and clear. "I leave you alone for 5 minutes, and you run off with him?" Claire's breath caught. Ethan straightened, expression turning cold with precision. "She walked out on her own," he said. "I only made sure she was not alone." Daniel stepped closer to Claire. "We are leaving." His tone was sharp, possessive. Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly. Claire felt the air tighten between the two men, as if an invisible line had been drawn. And in that single moment, she knew tonight was no longer just about jealousy. It was the beginning of something neither of them could take back. Daniel's hand hovered at Claire's elbow as if he expected her to obey instantly, but she did not move. Something in her chest finally refused to shrink any further. The tension on the terrace was so sharp it felt like the night itself was holding its breath. Daniel muttered, "Claire, we are going. Now." His voice was low enough to sound controlled, but edged with a warning that made her stomach tighten the same way it had for years. Before she could answer, Ethan spoke in that measured, unshaken tone that seemed to cut through every space he entered. "If she wants to leave, she will say so." Daniel snapped his head toward him. "This is my wife. This is none of your business." Ethan's gaze did not waver. Respect is everyone's business. Claire felt her breath stutter, not because of the confrontation, but because after so long being spoken over, someone was finally speaking for her. She straightened slightly. "Daniel, I will come with you in a moment. I just needed a break." For a second, she hoped he might hear her, truly hear her, but Daniel only scoffed. "A break from what? Wearing that dress? Or from talking to men who think they can just wander up to you?" He looked at Ethan again, full of disdain. "You do not even know her." Ethan replied calmly, "You would be surprised what someone can learn when they actually pay attention." Daniel stepped forward, anger flashing hot. Claire instinctively placed a hand on his arm. "Stop, please." The word "Please" came out softer than she intended, but it was enough to make both men freeze. She sighed. "Daniel, let us leave. We are causing a scene." Daniel exhaled sharply, grabbed her clutch for her, and walked toward the exit without waiting. Claire offered Ethan an apologetic glance, but Ethan shook his head softly. "Do not apologize to me." Something unspoken passed between them, something that both steadied and unsettled her. Then she turned and hurried after her husband. Inside the car, silence wrapped around them like cold glass. The city lights streaked past the windows, blurred by distance and a quiet ache growing in her chest. Claire finally whispered, "You embarrassed me back there." Daniel scoffed. "I embarrassed you? You were the one practically flirting." "I was not flirting. Maybe not intentionally," he muttered. "But you looked ridiculous. Everyone else is dressed properly for a gala, and you show up in a simple cotton dress." She felt something inside her tilt. "I wore what I had. You know that. You could have tried harder." Claire looked at him, really looked at him. The man she once believed she could build a life with now seemed farther away than the skyline outside the window. "I tried so hard for so long, Daniel," she whispered. "I do not know what else there is left to try." He did not respond. He just stared forward, jaw clenched, as if her words were an inconvenience he did not have the energy to unpack. When they pulled into their driveway, he stepped out first without offering her a hand. She followed slowly, feeling the weight of the night settle on her shoulders. As they entered the house, Daniel tossed his keys on the counter. "Next time, wear something appropriate," he muttered. "And stop talking to men like him. You do not understand that world." Claire felt the sting again, but this time, it did not make her smaller. It made her strangely quiet, focused. "Maybe you are right," she said softly. "Maybe I do not understand that world." She walked upstairs before he could question her tone. Once inside their bedroom, she sat on the edge of the bed and let the silence press in. She thought of the soft lights of the terrace, the way Ethan spoke to her as if she mattered, the way he saw more in 10 minutes than Daniel had in 10 years. She should not think about Ethan. She knew that, but the memory of his words kept echoing. A woman who walks into a room and holds it. You deserve someone who sees it. She closed her eyes, exhaling a long, trembling breath. Downstairs, she heard Daniel open a bottle of whiskey. A familiar sound. A tired one. Claire whispered into the empty room. "What am I doing?" But somewhere in the back of her mind, a new question flickered quietly, dangerously. And what if tonight was the beginning of something I did not know I needed? The thought lingered, soft but persistent, long after she slipped under the covers alone. Morning sunlight filtered weakly through the bedroom curtains, stretching across the rumpled sheets where Claire lay awake long before her alarm. She had barely slept. Her mind replayed the terrace, Ethan's voice, Daniel's anger, and the quiet ache inside her that no longer felt like something she could ignore. When she finally rose, the house was silent except for the faint clink of ice in a glass downstairs. Daniel was already drinking. At 8 in the morning, she moved softly through the hallway, not wanting another confrontation. Her shift at the clinic started soon, and the thought of being somewhere, anywhere, else brought a soft comfort. She slipped out of the house and drove to work, letting the familiar routine settle her heartbeat. But even at the clinic, between patient charts and warm greetings, her mind wandered. Not to the jealousy, not to the argument, but to the moment on the terrace when she had felt seen. She tried to shake it off. It was just a moment, she reminded herself. Nothing more. Yet when her phone buzzed during her lunch break, she froze. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered quietly, "Hello?" A smooth, calm voice replied, "Claire." "It is," Ethan called her. Her breath caught midair. She stepped into an empty hallway. "How did you get my number?" "I asked the gala coordinator," he said simply. "I wanted to make sure you got home safely." Her pulse skipped. "I am fine. That is not what I saw last night." She swallowed. "You should not call me. My husband is the reason I am calling." Ethan interrupted gently. "You were upset. I wanted to check on you." Claire looked toward the busy clinic lobby, the noise a blur behind the glass. "You do not need to worry about me." "I disagree," Ethan said, his tone steady. "You deserve someone who does." She closed her eyes. "Ethan, I am not asking for anything," he said, sensing her hesitation. "Only offering a conversation over coffee. Neutral place. No pressure." Before she could respond, her supervisor called her name from across the hall. "I have to go," she whispered. Think about it, Ethan said. You should not go through life unseen. The call ended, but the echo remained. That evening, when Claire returned home, Daniel was sitting in the living room, tie loose, whiskey half gone. You are late, he muttered without looking at her. I stayed longer to help with a patient. Right, he scoffed. Or maybe you were too busy thinking about that billionaire. Claire stiffened. Daniel, that is not fair. What is not fair, he snapped. Is my wife running around getting attention from another man because she cannot dress properly for one event? She felt herself flinch, then straighten. It was one night, and the dress was fine. For a backyard barbecue maybe, he muttered. She inhaled quietly. I cannot keep doing this. Daniel finally looked up, eyes red-rimmed and tired. Doing what? Being my wife. Being invisible, she whispered. The room went silent. Daniel leaned back with a cold laugh. If you are unhappy, that sounds like your problem. Something in her heart shifted sharply. Without another word, she went upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and leaned against it as her pulse raced. Her phone buzzed. A single message. From Ethan. If today was hard, you do not have to face tomorrow alone. Her breath trembled. She typed, erased, typed again. Finally, coffee. Tomorrow. 1 hour. She hit send before she could change her mind. The next afternoon, she arrived early at the quiet cafe tucked between two bookstores. It was warm, calm, nothing like the glittering chaos of the gala. When Ethan walked in, dressed casually but still striking, he paused when he saw her. Something softened in his eyes. You came, he said gently. I should not be here, she murmured. And yet, he replied, you are. She looked down at her hands. I do not know what I am doing. You are trying to remember yourself, Ethan said softly. That is not something to apologize for. She looked up, surprised by the clarity of his words. Ethan continued, I am not here to complicate your life, Claire. I am here because you seemed alone in it. Her throat tightened. I do not want to be alone anymore. Then do not be, he said simply. Choose people who see you. She exhaled slowly, feeling both steadier and more unsteady than she expected. Because the truth was undeniable now. Something had begun between them, and it was no longer something she could pretend she did not feel. Claire had never noticed how quiet a cafe could feel until she sat across from Ethan, her hands wrapped around a warm cup she had barely touched. Something about the calm around him made the rest of the world fall away, but she kept reminding herself that this was only a conversation. A moment, nothing more. Yet when Ethan leaned forward slightly, his voice soft but steady, it felt like he was peeling back the distance she had lived behind for years. Claire, he said, tell me something honest. When was the last time someone asked how you were doing and actually wanted the truth? The question struck deeper than he could have known. She swallowed. I would have to think very far back. Ethan's expression shifted, not pity, but something protective. Everyone deserves to feel seen. She shook her head lightly. You keep saying that, but you barely know me. I know enough, he replied, to see you are carrying more than you admit. And I know you have been neglected for longer than you want to admit. She felt her breath catch. She was not used to being read so quickly, so accurately, especially by someone like him. The hour passed faster than she expected. They talked about her work at the clinic, the patients she loved, the art she once adored before marriage turned her world into a quiet form of survival. When she spoke, Ethan listened as if each word mattered. And when he spoke, she realized she could breathe more easily around him than she had in years. As they walked out of the cafe, he paused on the sidewalk. Claire, I want to be clear, he said, his voice lower now. I do not want to interfere in a marriage you want to save. But if you ever decide you want something different, something that does not hurt, I will be here. Her pulse fluttered. Ethan, you do not need to answer, he said gently. Just know that you deserve more than being treated like an afterthought. She watched him leave, each step measured, and for a moment she wondered what would happen if she allowed her life to shift even a little. But the moment she walked into her house, reality hit hard. Daniel was seated on the couch, phone in hand, eyes sharp. Where were you? He demanded. I had coffee with a friend. A friend. Daniel stood abruptly. Is this how it starts? You put on some simple dress at the gala, and suddenly men like him start appearing in your life. Claire felt a familiar exhaustion settle over her. Daniel, it was just coffee. You embarrassed me, he muttered. First the gala, now this. Do you know what people will think if they see you with him? She stared at him, stunned. You are more concerned with people's opinions than with how I feel. Daniel threw his hands up. Do not be dramatic. You know I am under pressure. I do not have time to babysit your emotions. The words sliced painfully. Claire stepped back, her voice quiet but firm. Then maybe that is the problem. Maybe my emotions have been a burden to you for a very long time. Daniel narrowed his eyes. Are you leaving me? Her breath stilled. I never said that. But you are thinking it. I am thinking, she whispered, about what my life has become. Daniel scoffed. I will not let you ruin everything we built just because some billionaire paid attention to you one night. Claire felt something snap. Inside her, something that had been stretched thin for years. What did we build, Daniel? A house where we barely speak? A marriage where you do not even look at me unless another man does first. He froze. She continued, voice trembling but clear. I am tired of feeling invisible. I am tired of feeling alone. And I am tired of pretending that this is enough. Daniel's expression shifted from anger to panic, but Claire was already turning away, heading toward the stairs as he called her name. For the first time in a long time, she did not stop. There was a quiet fire inside her now, small but growing, fed by a truth she could no longer ignore. The life she was living was not the life she wanted. And deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Claire woke before sunrise, her mind still heavy from the argument the night before. She moved quietly through the house, careful not to wake Daniel, whose muffled snores drifted from the bedroom they barely shared anymore. She brewed coffee in silence, watching the steam curl upward like a question she did not yet know how to answer. When she left for the clinic, the air was cool and crisp, a welcome contrast to the suffocating tension inside her home. All morning, she tried to lose herself in her work, but the weight in her chest followed her from room to room. By noon, her hands trembled slightly as she reviewed a patient chart, and her supervisor placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Take your lunch break, Claire, she said softly. You look like you are carrying more than you should. Claire nodded and stepped outside into the small courtyard behind the clinic. She sat on a bench, the hum of city traffic muted by the surrounding walls. She had barely taken one sip of water when her phone buzzed. A message. From Ethan. Are you all right today? Her breath hitched. She stared at the screen for a long moment before her fingers moved. I do not know, she typed. Everything feels heavy. His reply came almost instantly. I can meet you for 5 minutes. No pressure. Just support. She hesitated, but the truth was undeniable. She needed someone to talk to. Someone who did not dismiss her feelings. Someone who saw her. 5 minutes, she wrote back. 10 minutes later, Ethan arrived at the courtyard gate, dressed in a simple dark shirt and slacks. Nothing flashy, nothing like the billionaire the world imagined him to be. His first words were quiet. Rough night. She let out a breath that trembled. Worse than rough. I feel like I am disappearing. Ethan stepped closer, but not too close. You are not disappearing. You are dimming yourself to stay in a space that no longer fits you. The words cracked something inside her, painfully and beautifully. Daniel thinks I am overreacting, she whispered. He thinks I am ruining things. People who take someone for granted always think the person asking for respect is the problem, Ethan said. But you are not the problem, Claire. You are waking up. Her eyes stung. I do not want to hurt anyone. You are allowed to stop hurting yourself, he replied gently. The courtyard fell quiet except for the soft rustle of leaves overhead. Claire wiped under her eye. Ethan, I do not know what I am doing. I am married. I made a commitment. And I am not asking you to break it, he said firmly. I am asking you to acknowledge whether you are still in a marriage or just in a contract of silence. The honesty floored her. She sat back, hands curling around the edge of the bench. Every time I talk to you, she whispered, I feel like you see right through me. Ethan shook his head. I do not see through you. I see you. That is all you ever wanted. Before she could speak, the clinic door opened and a nurse called her name for an incoming patient. She stood quickly. I have to go. Ethan nodded. Claire. She paused. Yes. If you ever need a place to breathe, you can call me. Day or night. She nodded once and went back inside, pulse unsteady. That evening, when she returned home, Daniel was waiting in the living room, pacing with restless energy. Where were you? He demanded. She set her bag down slowly. At work. For 12 hours? He snapped. She exhaled. It was a long shift. Daniel stepped closer, eyes cold. I checked your location. Claire froze. You what? Do not act shocked, he muttered. You have been different lately. Distant. Secretive. She shook her head slowly. Daniel, I met someone for 5 minutes to talk. That is all. His voice rose. You talked to him again? I needed someone to listen, she answered. And you have not listened to me in a very long time. His jaw clenched. You are my wife. You talked to me. I tried, she said, voice breaking. You stopped hearing me. Daniel stared at her, expression hardening, then pointed toward the staircase. I am not losing this marriage. And you are not walking out on me. Claire felt her entire body grow still. Daniel, she whispered. You already lost me the moment you stopped seeing me. For the first time, he looked shaken. She walked past him without saying another word and went upstairs, closing the door behind her. As she leaned against it, breath unsteady, her phone buzzed in her hand. A message. From Ethan. If it is getting harder, I am here. You do not have to face this alone. Claire closed her eyes, holding the phone to her chest as the truth settled deeper than ever before. Something was breaking apart, but something new was beginning to take shape. And she did not know which scared her more. Claire sat at the edge of the bed long after the house fell silent, her phone still glowing faintly in her hand. Ethan's message lingered in her mind like a steady heartbeat in a room filled with echoes. She did not reply. She could not. Not yet. But she held the phone a moment longer before setting it gently on the nightstand, as if acknowledging silently that someone out there actually cared how she was doing. The next morning, a heavy quietness settled through the house. Daniel barely spoke during breakfast. He shoved his plate away and muttered, "We will talk tonight," before leaving for work. Claire knew what that meant. More accusations. More pressure. More conversations that felt like walking across broken glass. At the clinic, she tried to immerse herself in work, but her thoughts weighed her down until even the simplest tasks felt twice as heavy. At lunchtime, she stepped outside into the courtyard again, needing air. She had barely taken a breath when her phone buzzed. A single line from Ethan. Are you safe today? Claire closed her eyes. No one had asked her that in years. Her fingers hovered over the screen before she typed, yes. Thank you. His reply came quickly. If you need help, you call me. You do not have to explain anything. She felt something warm spread through her chest, and for the first time since the gala, she let herself smile. It was small, fleeting, but real. Yet the moment she returned home that evening, the smile vanished. Daniel waited for her in the kitchen, arms crossed, jaw tight. We are talking now, he said. Claire placed her purse down slowly. About what? About you sneaking around, he snapped. About you lying to me. She stared at him, astonished. I have not lied to you. You met him again, he said, voice rising. Do you think I do not know? You leave the house early. You stay late. You stare at your phone like it is oxygen. Claire felt her throat tighten. Daniel, I met him for 5 minutes because I was falling apart and did not have anyone to talk to. You had me, he growled. She shook her head gently. No, I lost you a long time ago. Daniel slammed his hand on the counter, the sound sharp enough to make her flinch. You are my wife. You do not get to run off to another man the moment things get difficult. She steadied herself. I am not running to him. I am reaching for myself. He stared at her, confused and angry. Do you want him? She answered honestly. I want to be seen. Daniel froze as if the words struck something he had never expected to feel. She stepped back, voice soft. And for once, I want to stop shrinking just to keep the peace. Silence stretched painfully between them until Daniel finally muttered, If you walk out that door, do not come back. Claire felt something inside her settle. Not fear, not panic, but clarity. I am not walking out, she whispered. Not yet. But I am done being invisible. She walked past him, heading toward the stairs, her heartbeat steady for the first time in days. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew this truth with absolute certainty. Something inside her had awakened, and there was no turning it back off. Claire barely slept that night. Her mind replayed Daniel's ultimatum, the sharp echo of his words hanging in the air like a door slammed shut. But beneath the exhaustion, something else stirred inside her, something steady and quietly determined. By morning, she moved through the house with a calm Daniel clearly did not expect. He watched her from the doorway as she picked up her purse. We are not finished, he muttered. Claire paused. No, she agreed softly. We are not. But she walked out anyway, leaving him standing there in his confusion and anger. At the clinic, she kept her head down, but her heart raced every time her phone buzzed in her pocket. She waited until her break before checking it. One message from Ethan. You made it through the night. I am glad. She exhaled, tension draining from her shoulders. Without thinking too long, she replied, Today feels heavy. A moment later, her phone vibrated again. If you can step outside for a moment, I am nearby. Claire froze. Her pulse fluttered. She looked toward the courtyard, and through the glass, she saw him. Ethan stood with a quiet patience, hands in his pockets, eyes searching until they found hers. She stepped outside slowly. You did not have to come here, she said. I know, Ethan replied gently. But sometimes people show up for the ones they care about. Claire felt her breath hitch. Ethan, this is complicated. I am not asking to take you from anything, he said. I am asking you to stop letting yourself hurt alone. She looked down, fingers twisting nervously. Daniel thinks I am choosing you. Ethan shook his head. No, what you are choosing is yourself. I am simply someone who believes in that choice. Her eyes lifted to his, surprised by the certainty in his voice. He stepped just close enough for his words to reach her clearly. Claire, you do not owe me anything. Not affection, not a decision, not a future. But you owe yourself the truth. The life you are living is breaking you, and the life you want is waiting for you to claim it. She felt the truth of that down to her bones. Ethan continued, voice steady and low. I do not want a secret. I want something real. If you ever walk toward me, it has to be because it is your choice, not because you are running from him. Her breath trembled. I do not know what I will choose. Then I will wait, he said simply. Not to pressure you, but because you are worth waiting for. In that moment, something inside her shifted with undeniable clarity. For the first time in years, she felt the weight of possibility instead of fear. She whispered, Thank you, Ethan. He gave a faint, warm smile. When you are ready, Claire, choose the life that sees you. As he walked away, she realized the truth settling deep within her chest. This was no longer about Ethan or Daniel. This was about who she was finally becoming. Claire stood in the courtyard long after Ethan left, the soft hum of the city settling around her like a whisper of permission. For the first time, she felt the shape of her own life shifting into focus, not because someone pushed her, but because she had finally stopped pulling herself back. That evening, when she returned home, Daniel was waiting again, but this time she did not shrink. He launched into another argument the moment she walked through the door, his voice loud, desperate, tangled with fear he did not know how to name. You think you can just walk in and out like nothing matters? He shouted. Claire set her purse down calmly. Daniel, I am done fighting. He froze, thrown off by the steadiness in her voice. She continued, I am not leaving in anger. I am leaving because I am choosing myself. His face drained of color. So that is it. You are choosing him. She shook her head gently. I am choosing the version of me I lost long before he ever came into the picture. Daniel stared at her, and for the first time in years, she saw the truth in his eyes. He had never expected her to find her voice. He had never imagined she could walk away. But she did. She packed a small bag, walked down the staircase she once imagined would lead to a happy life, and stepped into the cool night air. When she reached the sidewalk, she pulled out her phone and hesitated only a moment before sending a message. I am ready to breathe. Minutes later, Ethan's car pulled up beside her, headlights warm against the dark street. He stepped out, no hesitation in his gaze, only quiet understanding. You chose yourself, he said softly. She nodded, emotion thick in her throat. I did. Ethan offered his hand, not as a claim, but as an invitation. Then wherever you go next, you will not walk alone. Claire placed her hand in his, feeling something steady and real settle inside her. This was not the beginning of a forbidden story, nor the end of a broken marriage. This was the moment she chose her own worth, her own peace, and her own future. And as they drove away, she realized the truth she had chased for years. Being seen was not about being wanted by someone else. It was about finally wanting a life where she mattered.